sticks, and serious money on the line. There's inside info. Extending like a massive finger, silently beckoning 17th century adventurers to come explore the waters and wilderness of Lake Michigan's Green Bay, Door County has inspired awe among European settlers for hundreds of years. But as countless Great Lakes mariners found, admission to the pristine bay came at a price. Guarded by rocky bluffs, incessantly buffeted by wind, waves, and treacherous currents, the 6-mile-wide passage claimed many a vessel and many a life. French voyageurs dubbed it Porte de Mort, Door of Death. Green Bay is the offspring of an ancient glacier scraping against the indestructible bedrock of the Great Niagara Escarpment. The receding ice eroded the edge of the rocky mass, leaving the craggy shoreline visible today and providing an ideal habitat for one of the world's most prolific populations of smallmouth bass.
I'm turning on it. I got a bunch of them coming. Look at them charging this thing. The husky jerk, they're charging it. Oh, come on.
In mid-May, the chill is just beginning to relent on the windswept shoals of the Door County Peninsula. As the smallmouth search for pockets of warming water to spawn, they're staging near shallow rock reefs, sand flats, and gravel bars. The fish are in pre-spawn stage and on the move, looking for that magic pool of 60-degree water. Keep in mind that Green Bay is huge. Miles upon miles of shoreline, thousands upon thousands of acres of water. And although the smallmouth will be concentrated in or near specific and well-known spawning areas, where do you find the right fish? That is, the big fish that are willing to bite.
A bass like that's loads of fun, but it ain't gonna do you no good in a tournament.
If the fish are shallow, look for anglers to be throwing light jigs and tubes. They'll have to back off since Green Bay is crystal clear. The larger pre-spawn females will be a bit deeper, most likely suspended. Here, jerkbaits will come into play.
There he is.
All things considered, wide open probably best describes this one. Wide open water, wide open fish location, and wide open presentation choices. It could be tough. Or it could produce some of the fastest fishing action of the season. We'll find out what these anglers are faced with. Huge water, unpredictable weather, fish on the move. All these are factors in deciding where and how to approach one of the biggest challenges on this season's Gander Mountain Invitational Pro-Am Bass Tour. With literally thousands of possible locations covering hundreds of square miles, these anglers have their work cut out for them to decipher what the fish are doing and what's going to make them bite. Come tourney day, there's $10,000 on the line and just a few short hours to bring the plan together. Not much time to go from plan A to plan B, especially when plan B could be hours away through 7-foot seas.
I just fished a big tournament out here last week, and I was out here all week long. You can fish all week long and never touch the same water twice.
For some of the first-time guys coming into Sturgeon Bay to fish this tournament, they're going to be quite humbled. And the reason being is this is a vast amount of water here to fish. It's a huge body of water. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of areas to be fishing. You have the West Shore, which puts you over around Marinette, Peshtigo. You've got Gills Rock. You're talking 15, 16 miles. Are you going to want to make the big run? Are you going to want to be pre-fishing in other areas that you may not be able to get to? Seeing that you only have one day, you've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of questions to be answered.
In early spring, warm water is the key to locating smallmouth staging for the spawn. Typically, shallow, wind-protected bays warm earlier in the season, attracting the first wave of spawning fish. Here, male smallmouth will fan off individual nesting sites and wait for female fish to lay their eggs.
Ooh, it's a little bit nicer fish. No, it's still small. Like I said, the 2-pound male. They're a lot of fun to catch, but this one's even smaller. A lot of times I look at the fish to see how far along they are too. You can look at their back anal fins here to see if they're real beat up, if they're starting to make nests yet. Their eyes will start turning color too. As you see, this one's just starting to turn red. I imagine within the next week and a half, this little male will probably be up making a nest.
Although these smaller male fish are concentrated and relatively easy to catch, they're not the fish anglers will need to win this tournament. The winning fish will be the much larger females just moving in to spawn. The trick is being there at the right time.
Oh, probably about 15, maybe pushing 16. Nice fish.
When the females do move in, it's not for long. They'll find a nest, expel their eggs, and immediately head back to deep water to recover, leaving the males to fertilize the eggs and guard the nest. Just like the springtime season, these finicky females roar in like a lion and slink out like a lamb. That is, they're far more aggressive and willing to bite before and during the rigors of spawning than after, when they become lethargic and tight-lipped. The challenge then is finding big pre-spawn female fish staging to move into bedding areas. It's a matter of being in the right place, at the right time, on the right fish.
Yeah.
And on Green Bay,
3-2.
that isn't easy.
You really need to find those pre-spawn females that are sitting off the break, sitting on the humps. I think that's really going to do it. And they're in different stages. You go down to the south part of the lake here in Sturgeon Bay, and they're a little closer to spawning. I'm finding 60, 65 degree water temps. You go up north and you're finding about 6 to 8 degrees cooler than that, and those fish are a little farther out from pre-spawn. They're in different locations.
The patterns that are going to be working at this time of the year right now is one particular pattern that I'm working with right now, and that's a jerkbait.
Jerkbaits can be fished on or just below the surface, or depending on lip design, at virtually any depth you choose. They can be fished fast or slow, or even completely still right in front of a fish's nose. The trick is in knowing where, when, why, and how to fish it.
One thing real key to working a neutral buoyant bait, especially when the water is 50 degrees, hovering right around 50 degrees, is you really need to pause for a long time. Those fish will come up and look at it, and you need to leave it right there, and it's almost like working a plastic where all of a sudden you're going to feel your line tick, and that's when you set the hook.
Here on the crystal clear waters of Green Bay, two distinctly different jerkbait methods have become popular. Dale Stroshine opts for the subtle pop and pause presentation for spooky fish in calm, shallow water. But here, out on the windswept shoals of Chambers Island, Scott Webster takes his jerkbait retrieve to the other extreme.
Good jerk, and that bait's gonna go probably 2 feet out, you know, darting under the water, and the fish is gonna hit it on the pause. And when you go to pick it up and jerk it again, that's where that, you know, the fish should have it. But that bigger jerk, when it dives like that, seems to trigger those bigger fish.
Unlike Dale's shallow cruisers, Scott is targeting female fish staging to move into spawning areas. These are big, hungry, aggressive fish, hanging in the waves and on the lookout for wind-buffeted prey.
There he is.
Just as in the finesse approach, it's the action that gets the fish's attention and the pause that triggers the strike. Extreme jerking. It's one of the most exciting and effective ways to target those giant Green Bay smallies. In early spring, the fish are in one of 3 stages: pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. And although pre-spawn fish can be some of the most aggressive of the season, spawning and post-spawn fish are about as negative as it gets all year. That means 2/3 of the fish here on Green Bay this weekend are going to need a whole lot of coaxing to get them to bite. And that calls for finesse fishing.
One other technique that works exceptionally well, has probably won a lot of events here, is just dragging plastics on the bottom.
All I'm basically doing is casting this grub out here, and I'm swimming it back in. It's kind of a clear, iridescent grub. Works really good in this clear water because it looks extremely natural, blends in. Now that's a little bit better fish. That's 2 3/4 pounds, I'd say.
If you're shallow, make long casts, keeping the boat away from spooky fish. Try a super slow swimming motion with a grub, a slow drag with a tube, or no motion at all with a stick worm rig wacky style. The point is to give the fish as much time as he needs to bite.
Basically just dragging it. They're wanting it very slow, so if you fish it too fast out here, they won't look at it. I mean, if you do the normal pump and let it drop, you won't get a bite around here. They're hanging close to the rocks. The majority of the fish that I find is on the backside of a rock. I'll feel a rock, and I'll just be coming over it, and I'll let it fall, and that's when the hit will come, is when it's falling right on the side. Yeah, nice little one, small male that was just combing the shallows in a free spawn.
So who's going to be the guy to track down and trigger those Mambo Mama Smallies? The Back Bay Boys or the big water wave whackers? The mild or the wild? We'll find. Big water, big fish, and a big day in Sturgeon Bay with $10,000 on the line. But the Gander Mountain pros are rigged and ready. Adrenaline builds as they idle out of the go-slow zone until they reach the buoy, grit their teeth, and blast. Although this water is huge, the very best spots are not, and the race to get on the fish is intense.
Watch yourself. 5 boat lengths.
Dan Elsner beats his competition to his #1 spot, Sawyer Bay, a shallow spawning area with fish already on beds. Opting to slowly drag a subtle plastic, Elsner quickly strikes bronze.
I'm gonna have to measure the fish. I don't know, what do you think, partner? Can we keep it? I mean, I guess it gets a snipe out of the box. I'm hoping 2.5, 2.6.
Back in Sturgeon Bay, the last of the field is still motoring out. But Daniel Lambert isn't wasting time running a half hour, not when the rocky shoreline right next to the takeoff is holding spawning fish. It looks like a number of fish have moved shallow and are responding. But are they the right size? Gary Schild and Jeff Tonys think so.
Oh.
But rather than a subtle presentation, Tonys is triggering these big biters with the extreme jerkin technique, violently ripping a neutrally buoyant Rapala Husky jerk past bedded bronzebacks.
Let's see him. All right.
We find another master of the extreme jerkbait technique fishing the chilly waters around Chambers Island. Scott Webster is sticking with his pre-fish pattern of ripping baits past mid-depth staging females, and it's paying off.
They're in here. They are in here. Oh, yeah. Stay on them. Stay on them. He's barely hooked. He's barely hooked.
Oh, yes! Good job, man.
Although this wild jerkbait presentation looks like a haphazard hit-or-miss affair, Webster explains just how precise he is with his boat and his
What
bait.
we're doing is we're going to go back and run this point again. We got to stay off it. These fish are hanging right down the bottom of the right down the bottom of this little break down here. Running about 12 feet of water, casting into 5-6 feet, and they're coming right off the edge.
There he is.
So far, going to the extreme is paying off in Webster's boat. But back in Sawyer Bay, the understated approach of soft plastics is still putting fish in the box for Dan Elsner.
That's what we were looking for. That's a little better fish. It's not a tournament winning fish, but it's a solid keeper. Yeah, that's a big fish. That's a big one. That's the kind of fish you want in a tournament.
Stalking bedding fish is a touchy affair. The risk of spooking fish before getting a bait to them is high. When Elsner spooks a nice fish off a bed, he marks the exact spot with a slip bobber tied to a split shot. After giving the fish time to settle down and get back on the bed, Elsner will return and know just where to drop that bait.
3-2.
As the clock continues to tick toward weigh-in, pros all over Green Bay are scrambling for the right limit. Some stick to the deeper pre-spawn fish.
There he goes.
Others will live or die with the shallow spawners. But for guys like Scott Webster, the key is knowing when to move from one to the other.
We're gonna go where there's numbers, and hopefully we can pull out a couple fish. You know, we'll probably be playing around with 2-pound fish in there, but maybe we can hook a 3-pounder if we catch enough of them. So that's what we're gonna do. We just gotta get our limit.
So Webster's off to hopefully find some buyers on the shallow flats. The same kind of spawning fish that continue to bite for Dan Elsner. With time running out, the pressure is on to fill out a limit. Scott Webster is still ripping, but has found the shallow bedding fish he needs.
Nice fish. Get the net. Get the net. Get the net. Get the net. Nice fish.
Here he comes. Put it down. That's just the way we drew it up on TV. Just for the camera to do it that way.
No doubt.
With 8 fish in the box, it's time for Webster and everybody else to head for the scales.
We're done.
We'll do the same when the game. It's decision time in Sturgeon Bay. 53 of the best bass pros in the upper Midwest and their amateur partners bag their Green Bay bounty and head for the Gander Mountain stage, where $10,000 awaits a winner.
Nice fish.
Early on, it looks like the title will come down to a matter of ounces, with team after team hefting limits in the mid-20s to the scale.
26.21, 26.16, 23.94, 26.91. Good job, Stu.
Including Dan Elsner, whose shallow finesse fish add up to 26.58 pounds, good for 11th place. Scott Webster's deeper water extreme jerkin technique delivers a great bag as well. 26.7 pounds will put him in 8th. Green Bay's reputation as a monster smallmouth factory is safe and sound, as a number of 4-pound-plus fish make their way across the stage. But the biggest of the big belongs to Mike Grawich, whose 4.7-pound bronze behemoth takes big fish honors. Out of 53 teams, only 5 will break the 27-pound barrier. Mike Crisp and Keith Seletsky will do it. Their 27.84-pound limit is good for 3rd. Brent Carlson found the pre-spawn staging fish he was looking for in practice and takes 2nd with nearly 28.5 pounds of bronze beauties. But this day belongs to pro Chad Adrians and Am Don Roberts.
All right, let's hear it for this guy. Unofficially, right now, first 30-pound bag. He's going to get a lock on it. 32.75 on the lock. You want to grab some? You got a big fish?
With an eye-popping 4+ pound average for 8 fish, Chad Adrians is the Gander Mountain Invitational Pro-Am Bass Tour Sturgeon Bay champion.
I started out my day this morning looking for some bedded fish, and the fish had slid off the beds because of the cold front, and they slid back into a little bit deeper water, 3-4 feet, and I caught them on a tube in the sand, working it as slow as I could. And I also caught a couple big fish on a fluke, doing nothing with it, just casting out and letting the wind hold your line up. The fish I caught definitely slid off and slid into the sand. They were in nothing but sand, and in ditches in about 4 feet of water.
It was the old low and slow that put the winning bag in the box and $10,000 in the bank. Great job, Chad. You blew them away at Sturgeon Bay. This was the second of 4 events in the Wisconsin division of the Gander Mountain Invitational Pro-Am Bass Tour. And the points race for Division Angler of the Year and the $75,000 Tournament of Champions looks like this. Dan Elsner leads the way after 2 events, with Scott Webster just 6 points back. The top 10 point getters from each division at the end of the season will qualify for the Tournament of Champions. Be sure to tune in next week when we come to you from Minnesota's Big Bass Mecca, Lake Minnetonka.
Well, we just thought we'd treat you to a